Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to The Upside. I'm Jonathan Olesky with JMOR, and our show is about to begin. To maximize your experience today, we recommend putting your Zoom screen on speaker view. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our two wonderful hosts, Beth Goldsmith, Chair-elect of the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore, and Dr. Scott Rifkin, publisher of JMOR. Beth, take it away.
Thanks, Jonathan, and welcome again to The Upside. This is our virtual show brought to you by the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore and JMOR Magazine to keep our Baltimore Jewish community informed during this time of uncertainty. We'll be coming to you twice a week with episodes that you can view live on Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube. Each episode will tackle some of today's most pressing topics, feature some of the community's leading experts, and answer the questions that are on all of our minds. Today, we will be talking about the residential real estate market. For those of you who are considering buying or selling your home during COVID-19, what types of special arrangements might need to be made? How do you stage an open house in this environment? How can you safely show your house to a potential buyer? We have an outstanding panel of industry experts joining us today to answer those and many other questions. Scott, would you do the introductions, please?
Sure. Thank you, Beth. Thank you so much. On behalf of JMOR and of the Associated, we want to welcome our guests. And before I even do that, I just want to mention to those that are viewing that over 1,000 people have watched each of these shows. We've been really, really pleased, both live, but mostly people watch on Facebook and other media and seem to be enjoying the show. So we thank you for your participation. And if you have ideas for shows, please let us know. So we have three guests today. We have Margaret Rome from HomeRome Realty. And Margaret, if I didn't get that right, correct me. Okay, HomeRome Realty. We have Jason Perlow from Berkshire Hathaway Homesale. And we have Jason Rubenstein from Evhar Realty Service. So thank you for the three of you guys. Beth, why don't you lead off with the first question?
So I guess what we all want to know is, what is the current state of the real estate market in the greater Baltimore area? And why don't we start with the ladies first, Margaret?
Okay. The state of real estate right now for me is busy, very, very busy. I am probably like the Jasons are both running around. We have buyers that need to buy and want to buy right now, and they are. I am going to sleep like at 2 o'clock in the morning with out-of-town buyers right now. The interest rates are so low. We put an offer in, things come on the market. It's really unbelievable that in a pandemic that we could be having this kind of flurry in real estate. And I know a lot of the real estate agents have pretty much stopped working, but those of us that are working are really busy, and we are selling homes, and we're doing it safely.
So Margaret,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. I was just going to ask for the Jasons to chime in, but go ahead, Scott.
Sorry. Margaret, explain to me what you mean by safely.
Safely means I'm not going to take any chances for my health. I'm not going to take any chances for the buyers and the sellers' health. So if I have a seller who is concerned about showing the house, that house should not be on the market right now. Buyers, they must be in mask and gloves. There cannot be more than 3 people in the house. I am not going to stand closer than 10 feet from them, but I can still talk to them, let them go through the house. Like yesterday, when I was showing a house, went through the whole house, got the lay of the land, had all the paperwork, and then said, I'll meet you guys outside. We pulled up a couple of lawn chairs outside, far apart, and we were able to discuss the house and how we were going to write the offer. That's safely. The other things, getting home inspectors out there. There's no reason now for us, the real estate agents, the buyers and sellers, to actually be in the home, because the home inspectors have it set up, at least the ones that I'm using, that are doing it with a virtual camera, so the buyers can see what's going on, and then we get a report. That's safely. Same with appraisers. Some don't even need to go into the house right now. Some are doing drive-bys. Some are actually waiving appraisal. So everybody in our real estate industry is just stepping up to the plate to make our industry safe and get the work done and get houses sold and get buyers into homes, because real estate is not stopping. Buyers want to buy, sellers need to sell, and we need to facilitate that.
Good.
Jason
Sorry, Beth.
Perlow will start. I was going to just let you jump in.
Sure.
Are you having the same experience or different? And
Yeah.
when he's finished, Jason, my other Jason, jump in too, please.
Sure. So thank you for having me on. I look forward to seeing everybody when events pick up for both the Associated and Jaymore. Margaret really hit on a lot of points. I will say there was a shortage of inventory before this pandemic started, and you can imagine now there really is a shortage. So what's happening with buyers is 10 buyers are looking at a home. A lot of times there's multiple offers on this house. For instance, in Worthington Park, I listed a property, a neighborhood with hundreds and hundreds of houses. Only one house came on. So that gives you an idea of the shortage of inventory. In terms of safety, Margaret hit on it: gloves, masks, sanitizer. We have something called our quarantine kits that we're dropping off to all of our sellers. So really, it's about our clients' safety is first. I mean, that's the number one priority. If a buyer's not comfortable going into a house, or a seller's not comfortable letting people into their house, it's not the right time. But if they are, your house is most likely going to move, in a reasonable amount of time.
Jason
Yes,
Rubenstein.
yes, thank you. First of all, Beth and Scott, thank you. Honored to be here. I also second what Margaret and Jason said. The one thing that I would add, though, is I'm really trying. Yes, extremely busy. Inventory is moving. Inventory is low. Multiple bids and offers on properties. The one thing that I would add is one thing that I'm doing on the listing side is doing virtual videos. And when I get a contact from an agent, I'll say to them, can you please ask your client to view the video first before we prepare a house to be shown by a buyer? People take a lot of time to clean their house, prepare their house, get it ready. By simply nicely saying to the client to the buyer's agent, in this environment, could you please take a look at my video first? Could your buyer look at it? So there's no surprises. If a basement is not finished in a house, that is clearly seen on a video, and we'll be able to work together to answer questions ahead of time before we actually even do a showing. So limiting the amount of people in a house that just aren't serious buyers, or it's just not the right house for them, is one thing that I've really been working on in the beginning of a listing. The other thing is simply respect. Everyone has to respect each other, respect everyone's different levels of caution, gloves, masks, distancing. It's really respecting all of the vendors I've dealt with. I did 2 or 3 inspections last week with well inspectors and septic inspectors. It was all about respect from every vendor, and we had no pushback. Everyone in the real estate industry is really on the same page when it comes to safety for your buyers and sellers. And it's actually been very successful.
Can I add to that? Jason, I agree with everything that you say. And when the sellers, I think we as real estate professionals need to continue to screen the people who come through the house. When you've got an agent who says, I need to see the house between 10 and 4 because I'm showing 12 properties, that's not the person that needs to be coming into your house today. They need to, as you said, look at that video. Is it the house you want? Does the house, does the neighborhood, does the price meet that seller, that buyer's expectation? And if not, don't waste and don't put people in jeopardy by bringing unqualified buyers into the house. And when I say unqualified, I don't just mean money qualified. I mean, is it the right house? And I think if we are getting that information out to our sellers and our real estate agents, we can all make this business just wonderful as it is.
Margaret.
I'll add one thing to that. I've been saying, you know, there's a lot of moving parts to the real estate transaction, but there's a big difference between occupied properties and vacant properties. Vacant properties, of course, everybody still needs to be safe and take all precautions. Occupied properties, especially with everybody's kids home from school and kids are home from colleges, they're on their Zoom calls. There's limited times to view these homes, and we're almost like detectives, I say. So usually what happens in the industry is before the pandemic, a showing comes in, there's an hour window, the seller approves the showing, it's fine, they're at work. Now there's limited times to see the home, and as the agent, we're calling and asking questions. Of course, are they pre-approved, but are they contingent on selling a property? Have they traveled? Will they have any kids with them? I mean, there's so many wrinkles now in this process that we're working through, but that's been a major change in the industry that I've seen.
Very good. So I've got two kids, one in Baltimore and one in Westchester, New York, both buying homes right now. And it strikes me that even if there are houses available, the banks have gotten a lot tougher. And I had one bank person tell me that they've raised the required a FICO score or credit rating, whatever you want to call it, from like the mid 600s to the mid 700s. How is that impacting what you guys do?
I can start with this one if you'd like, Scott. I've definitely been watching this as well. So one thing that I'm seeing in the market is the luxury market, which is the jumbo loans in Baltimore, which is $517,500 and above, is much more, let's say, challenging to get jumbo loans approved right now. Wells Fargo is the largest jumbo lender in the area at this time, and they have definitely changed their qualifications, and they continue to change their qualifications. One day it's not that hard to get a loan. One day it is hard to get a loan. So I think that the jumbo markets are a little bit more difficult right now than the under $517,500 markets for sure. And I think that the jumbo markets are going to continue to suffer. By the way, the number I mentioned, Scott, differs per county, per city, per state. So I don't want anyone to think that you know, your daughter living in Westchester is also 517,000. I don't know what it is offhand. So the markets vary. So it's not just the homes, the location, but the price points are also affected during these times.
Very good. Are you guys seeing the same thing?
What I'm seeing is I think we need to be more diligent before we even bring your kids in from out of town and show them any houses, that before they get here, they have that pre-approval or that approval that if we find a house that day, they're ready to go, that they know to have their earnest money deposit check with them. If we find that house, we don't have to wait and go back. And I'm finding that a lot of times people come to see houses, and as Jason and Jason are mentioning, with low inventory, if you're not able to put that offer in with the lender letter, with the approval, with your earnest money deposit, with your signatures, with all of the disclosures there, you don't have a shot with these buyers. And the other thing is that before they get here, that they should be narrowing down to maybe 2 or 3 homes that they're going to see, and then the night before make sure those homes are still on the market before you go out to see them. So you're doing some serious investigating before you're actually walking into a home with somebody. I tell them when they come in to also drive by the house. If they don't like the next door neighbors, we don't need to go see the house. So there's a lot of things that we are doing ahead of time before we're actually bringing somebody into your home to purchase your home. And everybody's got to be sure this is not the time for tire kickers, right, Jason?
Totally agree. Just to add one quick thing to what Margaret said. The other thing that I would say is important. We're talking a lot about the buyer end of things, but it's also setting seller expectations. You know, in initial conversation with the seller, I've been fortunate to do many properties over that $517,000 mark as well as below. But when you're talking to a seller at that price point, you really have to set expectations. And I think it has to come into consideration when you're setting price points. And a lot goes into price points. What is the seller? Do they need to move in a month because they got a new job? Do they have their time to move? Can we maybe try it a little bit high and see where the markets are going right now? It's really an entire conversation that goes into it. So I just don't want to forget that we also have to address the seller side and setting expectation. And interest rates being low is definitely good when you are in real estate. It's really nice to have interest rates at 3.25% or 3%. That's makes our jobs really nice right now. So.
Could you tell us a little more? I'm sorry, Jason, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I second everything both said. I will say what Jason Rubenstein said about the jumbo loans. That is something that has really changed the last couple of months, especially in the areas that Margaret and Jason and I operate in. A lot of people are getting the jumbo loans. Some lenders have some wiggle room that I've talked to, but a lot are minimum 20% down. A lot of people before were doing 10% or what's called an 80-10-10 loan. Some can still do that, but like Margaret said, really do your homework because, you know, you have three experts here in the real estate industry, but it could be a newcomer agent that doesn't have their pulse on the industry now. So you really want to make sure that everybody is prepared before they go, you know, into especially an occupied home.
Thanks. This really, really a great discussion. I want to delve a little deeper into the technology aspect. Jason, you had mentioned the videos. Who does those? How do they happen? Maybe from the seller's point of view as well as the buyers. And what other technology are you guys using to make this happen?
Yep, I'm assuming you want me to take it?
Sure, you could start.
I'll take it to start. So there is a ton of technology out there and new technologies coming out. Technology, not only a video, like a walkthrough video, almost on an iPhone or a camera, but in addition to that, good sets of pictures. Depending on the house, I've been using a service called Matterport, which is actually a 3D walkthrough of the house. So if you have an out-of-town guest, and this is obviously getting more and more popular during these times, you can start at the front door, use your mouse, use your keyboard, use your arrow keys, and walk through the house virtually and really get a good sense of the house. You know, and I've had people call me up and say, wow, it was amazing. Let's place an offer. And one thing I think that agents and people need to be aware of, I appreciate that you want to place an offer, but we still need to see it because you don't know if there was a cat that lived in that house and that house absolutely smells horrible. You just can't get everything through the video. I don't know the proximity of the neighbors. Maybe they are 10 feet away from the front door and the Matterport didn't show you behind. So really doing the due diligence and really working with your clients to make sure, all right, I appreciate that you like it and all that's great, but let's go look at it also, or let me at least go look at it and help you out here to make sure we're not missing something is really important. So you can have all the technology in the world, and I do think it's great until you really go see, touch, feel, smell the product. You just have to be cautious in any environment. There's a ton of technology out there. I guess I'm sure Jason and Margaret can add additional technology, but that's some of the stuff that I'm utilizing right now.
Yep. Yeah, the 3D Matterport tours are a great tool. It actually has been out for about 5 years, but really since the pandemic, it really has increased. The walkthroughs are fabulous. We've really upped our digital marketing, something called AdWorks, where you go on numerous websites. And really, I'd say when the lockdown started, I think in early March, that first 6 weeks, people really weren't leaving their homes. And as realtors, I know those first couple of weeks, there wasn't really clear guidelines on what we were allowed to do. So we were waiting from our brokers, who was waiting from the governor and health departments on if we could show houses or not. Because if we weren't allowed to, you know, we needed to strategize with our sellers and buyers on how we were going to move forward. You know, I really agree with Jason there. These are great tools. Definitely have buyers and sellers do these things. Look at them before you actually go into the house. But a seller needs to be prepared that most likely, if somebody makes an offer sight unseen, there's still probably going to be a contingency in there that, they have a walkthrough clause that they can get out once they see the house. They need to be prepared to let the home inspector in. I had a seller that was very uncomfortable with that. And I said, look, they're coming in with their masks and gloves. They need to touch things. A buyer does not need to touch anything right now, but a home inspector, they need to check your HVAC, your electrical system, appliances. So a seller really needs to feel comfortable with that. But these are great tools that allow us to, move forward in the industry.
So police tape or the outline of a body in the living room might be bad.
Not good for sales, Scott.
I would imagine you guys have great stories along those kind of lines.
All day
But
long.
very good. So let's flip it around to the seller's perspective. You tend that inventory is way down. People are probably less likely to take new jobs right now. They're probably less likely to decide to move somewhere, and inventory is way down. What does that mean to the market? Does that mean prices are going up, or the prices are staying about the same?
May I take it? I think that sellers need to be educated by programs just like this. I am so proud of you for inviting the three of us on. Many sellers are under the impression that nothing's happening right now, that the market is dead. We have gotten so busy with buyers. I think, Jason, both of you are listing agents. I'm definitely a listing agent, but lately I feel like I've turned into a buyer's agent running around. I think we need to be educating the public that if they need to sell, if they're ready to sell, if the house is ready to sell, now's the time to do it. You can't let, what's going on tell you can or can't sell right now. And I think people like Jason and I can guide them to when to put the house on, how to put the house on, and then educate them how we work to screen the people and make them safe coming into it.
I agree with Margaret. And one other piece to the puzzle is a big aspect to listing your home. We call it the HGTV phase, is the prep and design phase. So a lot of sellers feel differently. They say, okay, I'm comfortable letting a buyer or two in a day with their agent, but I'm not comfortable letting a painter paint my house for a week and be in there with his whole crew. So when this pandemic started, our team, we had about 7 properties. At that time, we were planning to list 5 of them. We had painting set up, carpet installation about to happen. All those people put it on hold except one at the time because they had a place to stay. Most of them have now moved forward, but a couple said, you know what, we want the house to sell for top dollar. We need to do, some minor renovations and prep work to get the house ready. So we're just going to hold off until we feel comfortable. And as realtors, we are not here to pressure our clients. We are here to be upfront and honest with them and say, look, if we list the house, we're very confident it's going to sell within X amount of days. And if you're not comfortable with that, we completely understand. So we had about 5 people, still on the sidelines. It could take until 2021 with them. A lot of people are getting a lot more comfortable. Some have family to stay with, or a second home at the beach where they can stay when the house gets prepped. But that's really a big factor for a seller, is most of the houses that we list need some touch-up work and prep work to make it look perfect. And they need to be comfortable letting the painters or cabinet person in so they can do the work prior.
One of the other things that I'm finding, I'm sorry, Jason, one of the other things I'm finding is that sellers don't really know where they're going. If they're waiting to go into adult living or a nursing home or moving out of state, there's a waiting list to get in, so they can't get in. So there's a catch-22. Do I list first? Then my house isn't sold. If it's sold, I don't have a place to go. I think we're dealing a lot with that with the sellers right now.
Jonathan, you had a question?
Nope.
Oh, I thought you had one for the audience. Very good. So,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, one of the interesting thing I've seen over the last few months with more than one buyer and more than one seller is simply people wanting more room. People have been home a lot recently. And I have had people call me up say, we weren't really considering it. We thought about it, but we just want more space, or we want less space, depending on what it is. It's just the two of us. The kids are out of the house. They're not coming back anytime soon. This place is just too big for us as we're home and we're cleaning it and we're maintaining it. So I've seen it on both sides. So it's just interesting through the pandemic. And I wonder if Jason and Margaret have seen it. People just want a change, whether it's bigger or smaller.
I agree. And I know that's really been happening in New York City. That happened like the first week. People started buying properties up in the Hamptons and Long Island. I've had two people that live in tighter spaces contact me, both just had kids, and they're both under contract right now. In the county, they needed more space. And, I'm definitely a glass half full, not empty person, but to be realistic, this is not going to be over in a month. And I do see that happening more and more over the upcoming months of people needing more space, especially maybe home gyms, offices, spaces that they may have made, a fifth or sixth bedroom. Home offices and gyms are going to be very important, in my opinion, and some other articles I've read from experts.
So from the point of view of the downsizers, I'm thinking of people who may be alone, for whom it wasn't a problem, but now a larger home where they need more help maintaining it looks for the future as to not be a comfort. Are we having the same limited market or limited availability in condo spaces?
Absolutely. We have a terrible shortage in Baltimore. There is nothing new for a condo. If you need a 2-bedroom and a den condo in Baltimore, there is an unbelievable shortage. If only we could find somebody to build something for the 55 and older, or somebody who is not ready to go into the condo, that in between, a rancher that's small enough, 2 bedrooms and a garage and a nice living room and we could sell them, all of us could sell them all day long. There are no places like that are in move-in conditions, much less there are still no condos that are move-in condition that you don't have to wait to, rehab them. So we have a tremendous shortage there.
You're not seeing a lot of fear of moving into sort of congregate situations where people are closer together. I mean, I've heard some people say, well, I don't want to be in that condo building or that apartment building because I'm breathing the air that so many other people are breathing.
I'm not finding that. In fact, I'm seeing people saying, I don't like being isolated. I need to be around people. And if I were in a condo, I've got somebody to visit, to look at, to see in the lobby. So I'm not finding that scare that they want to be way, way away. There are people who say, I want to be out on a farm someplace away from the people. But I think our people, we are craving the touching and the feeling and our community, and we're losing it right now without having things like Zoom. Thank goodness for Zoom that we can stay in touch. And I think this technology is great, not only for those of us with families, but for those in the real estate business to help buyers and sellers. We can sign contracts and do it on Zoom and talk, and they can walk you through the house. It's a different way. I think it's going to be the new norm, though. But I do not see people afraid to go into condos at this point. Or do you, Jason and Jason?
No, I don't. And I can give you a great example. I had a unit listed in the Quarry in Pikesville. I will say that first month of this, there number one, weren't a lot of people going out, and maybe we're a little less hesitant to walk into a condo building compared to a detached home or a townhouse. But about a month ago, when it really picked up, that unit sold. I can tell you 2 others came on the market as well in the Quarry condo community. They both sold within the first week. So that's a sign that people are still moving into condo buildings. And I have another one in the city that's actively being shown. So that first month, there was that initial feeling, I don't want to be in a more compact space. But to be honest, the condos here, especially the Quarry and the Ritz-Carlton downtown, you have plenty of space in there where you're not going to feel like you're in a compact space.
And you're going to have some walking space around them. I think people
Yes.
are looking to, that walkability, to be able to walk to a shop, to walk a neighborhood, just to feel safe walking someplace. And I think that's really important. I too had one in the Quarry that we sold. Our settlement date, we've moved it up 6 months, and everybody is okay with that. It's still under contract. Everybody's agreed, because the one person that it's under contract with can't get into their new adult living until it's ready. So therefore the buyers can't buy. So there you've got that reverse situation. Yes, you can buy my house, but I have to have a place to live. And we also don't have great rentals here in Baltimore for somebody to transition to say, okay, I'll get out of my house, I'll just rent a place. Where?
Good. Beth, if you've got a question, and then I've got a last question.
Well, I was going to ask, since it came up, someone, I think Jason Perlow just mentioned the county and the city. Is there a difference? You both, or all three of you, I mean, obviously work the whole greater metro area. So are certain neighborhoods hopping and certain neighborhoods not so great at the moment?
Yes. I'll throw the softball. Yes. Yeah, look, I think that's always the situation, Beth, that there's always going to be areas that are hotter, colder, change. One thing interesting I've seen over my years of doing this, it can even go street by street. I mean, literally, you could be in a neighborhood, but somebody will make the comment, I just don't like that street. Yet 500 feet away is the other street. They're like, oh, I love that street. And it could be simply because the street is lined with trees. I've seen it in the city before. It can be like literally because there's trees on one side. A house I just worked on in the city, the left side of the street was not as desirable as the right side of the street. So it really comes down to not only neighborhoods, it can come down to one street and the differences on one street. So, and I'm sure Jason and Margaret have plenty of comments on this question.
Beth, speaking of that, there are some streets, as Jason and Jason know, that one side of the street is Baltimore City and the other side is Baltimore County. Or one side of the street is one school system and the other side is not. So these are all things that you need somebody who's educated and know. When somebody says, oh, I want to live on this street, there can be some serious considerations there.
I agree with that. And I will say Baltimore City and Baltimore County, in the prime areas, there still is that shortage of inventory. So we listed last week a couple properties in Fells Point, Lutherville, Owings Mills, and one in Carroll County. All of them sold within the first week for full price or above asking. So that just gives you idea, regardless of city or county, when there's limited inventory and a pent-up demand, especially now, if the property is presented in a nice way, you're going to most likely get an offer in a relatively quick amount of time.
So J Moore has about 14,000 families that read it every month. The Associated obviously has a huge following, and both organizations promote this show pretty heavily. What would you say to the families that have that first-time home buyer, like my two kids, who are looking out there? You know, one son is a physician. He's trying to get one of those doctor loans. The other is a lawyer, young lawyer in practice, who hasn't documented a lot of income yet. What do you say to that young home buyer that's out there as a first-time buyer?
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in on this one. I work with a lot of first-time home buyers, and it really depends on their situation. One is if they're living at home or their lease isn't up, I would say not to rush it and be patient. Even though it's their first home and it's not going to be their forever home, take your time, look at the couple areas that you're interested in, do all of your research. On the other note, I was just working with someone that was moving in from out of town, and they start their job at the end of June. They needed to find a place. There was nowhere to stay, nowhere to go. So they had to act a little quicker. So I really think it's situational. One thing that we do with first-time home buyers, typically we have what's called a buyer consultation. We can't do that really in person now. We could, but we'd be 6 feet apart. We've been doing them on Zoom, as well as some listing presentations. More sellers are comfortable at least letting us into the house now. But a buyer consultation for a first-time buyer is very important, as there's a lot of moving parts to this process, and we want to make sure that they understand what they're going into before they start. Mainly, the pre-approval process is the first piece of this puzzle, as we call it.
Scott,
And
go.
I think, go ahead.
No, please.
I think that your kids need more than anything to be educated about the process, as Jason was saying. They have to know where they want to be, how soon they can do it, and again, get pre-qualified. There's a lot of work that buyers need to do before they step foot in that first house. And they need a real estate agent who understands what their needs are. Because when you really interview a buyer correctly, you can pretty much narrow down what they want. And then when you meet them and see them in that first home, you can tell whether you've missed it, or you can say, hey, we're in the right place, and say, maybe this isn't the right neighborhood. Maybe this isn't the right house for you. I don't mean steering in a neighborhood. I mean, you might like the houses in a different neighborhood. And we get to know them really, really well. And I say most of us, when we're showing buyers, we probably know that house before they do, the one that they're going to buy, the one they're going to fall in love with. And I think that's the purpose of finding somebody who has really worked with those buyers ahead of time.
Can I add to that, Scott?
Somebody was about to jump in.
Yeah, Scott, can I add to that?
Please.
The one thing that I was going to say is the one thing I think is really important as an agent is just because their approval letter is for $1 million, I think it's our job to say to first-time buyers, look, do you really want to spend $1 million on your first house? And I could be exaggerating this a little bit, but let's talk about really the reality of life. Are you going to be sending your kids to a private school? Are you going to have kids? Do you want to put away for a college 529? So I think it's important as an agent to really be honest with your buyers and really guide them. It's not just buying a house, it's really life. It's most people's largest purchase and a 30-year commitment for most people. You could argue they could take a 15-year mortgage or whatever. But just because they're approved for $1 million, is it the right thing to guide them in the $1 million price range, or to listen to them and all of their needs to guide them to the right price point for them? And I think that's a really important factor.
Jason, I think that's a really good point. And I think each of our guests have done a wonderful job. Beth, you want to give the,
Thank you. Thank you, Margaret, Jason, and Jason. And as we were just saying, so you guys not only have expertise in the housing market, but you function as counselors and financial advisors and psychologists. And so it really was a wonderful insight into what it's like to be in your position. And we thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Our next show would typically be this Thursday evening. However, as we welcome the Jewish holiday of Shavuot, we won't be having our regular show, but instead we invite you to participate in Come and Learn, a Greater Baltimore virtual Shavuot experience. This is a special community-wide all-night study fest where you will engage with sacred texts until the wee hours of the morning. Join area synagogues and Jewish organizations for an unforgettable evening. You can view the entire schedule at naalebaltimore.org. That's NAALEH Baltimore.org. And then be sure to join us next Tuesday, June 2nd at noon for our next show. Please remember to visit associated.org and jmoreliving.com to sign up for JMOR's weekly e-newsletter and for more information, stories, and resources, and stay well.
All right, thank you all. Have a great holiday, and we look forward to seeing everyone next Tuesday. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.